Hello and welcome back. In the last video, we looked at basics of ribbon tab, the list of connectors available, and how to load an Excel file into Power Query. As a recap, the transform tab will transform the column in place. For example, let me go to transform tab. Let me select the date column, and from here in the date, I can select all of these options. So for example, let's go to the week and then select end of week. And as you can see here, that it added end of week, but it replaced the existing column instead of creating a new one. A workaround for this is to duplicate the existing column and then apply transformations on it. I will see even a better way just in a minute. We can also see the M code that is being created. I would suggest that you always show the formula bar here so you get some idea on what exactly is happening. Let's remove this step and move to add column tab. So I'm just going to click X here and it will remove this step. So let me X this out. Right, let me move to add column tab, and you can see here that it also has a date section with the same options. So let's click on date, let's click on week, and end of week. As you can see here, it has added the end of week column as a separate column, and the existing and the original column remains in place as well. You can see the M code it has created in the formula bar. Says table.add column, and it references the previous step in it as the column name, and then it does date.end of week. You don't really have to learn the M code, but if you really want to do some fancy stuff, then it is a good idea to study up on the M code. Right, so on the left side you have the query option. So let me right click on it and see what options are available. So we have a copy option. This will create a copy of the query. We have a delete option. Keep in mind that there is no undo option in Power Query if you delete a query or if you delete a step from here. Rename will rename this query. You can rename it here, or you can also click here to rename. So those are two options available. You can duplicate a query and you can reference a query. So the main difference between duplicating and referencing is that duplicate will create an exact copy of same query with all of the steps. So let's click on duplicate, and you can see here that this is a duplicate of exact query, and it takes the name of the query and adds 2 at the end. Alright, so keep in mind that the duplicate query is not going to be affected by the original query. So for example, if I change anything in the original query, let me quickly, let's say, add another column. So let's say I add an index column from index 1. So it has that in index column. Let me go over to the second query, duplicated query, and you can see here that it has not added that column. So these are two separate queries, and any changes you make in the original query will not travel or reflect in the duplicate query. So let me remove the duplicate query, right click delete, and as you can see here it has deleted and it is not showing any option for undo, delete or anything. So there's no way to recover a deleted query if you happen to delete it. Right, so the other option is reference. So let me click on reference. Let me rename it quickly so it's easier to look at. So stocks table reference, and as you can see here it does not have all of those steps, but just has one step which says source equals stocks underscore table. So if I quickly look at the M code for this, in the advanced editor it says let source equals stocks underscore table, and then in, and then it says source. Keep in mind that any changes you make in the original query will travel to this query. So let's say, let me remove this step here. Let's take a look. Okay, so we have this step here as well. So let me remove it in original query. I'm going to remove this step from here, and you will see that this step will be removed from the referenced query as well. So this is something you need to keep in mind when working with duplicate or referenced queries. You can see a small table icon here. If you click on it, you will see some more options, so you can copy the entire table. There are some more options available, but all of these options are available on the above ribbon tabs as well. So it's mostly easier to use these options from the ribbon tabs. If you prefer it from here, you can use it from here as well. Let me remove this query. Right. So the next option is move to group. So what will happen is sometimes you would have a lot of different queries. So you may want to save or organize some of the queries in a separate group. Let's say you have 5 queries which are loading data, and then you're combining the data from all of those 5 queries and resulting in one final query. Then you're saving that final query in an Excel. But you don't need to load all those 5 queries, so you can move them to staging group So let me do that. Move to group, new group. So staging means that it's just loading up data and you're using the data from it for your final product, but you're not going to load data from that file into the Excel table. Staging queries, we click OK. So as you can see here, it has created two sections. So one is for staging queries, one is other queries. You cannot really rename this other queries. So what you can do is you can move this query to another group. You can say new group and we say final result. Alright, so on the right side are the apply steps. If you click on any specific step, you will see more details for it. So let me right click on this source, and it has options for edit settings, insert after. Let me click on this one. It will have more options. So keep in mind that the edit settings option is not available for this step because you do not see a gear icon next to this. So there's no further settings available for this. You can rename the step to give it a more meaningful name if needed. In some cases where you need to delete a specific step, you can use this delete option. Keep in mind that if you're deleting a step from the middle, Power Query will give you a heads up that deleting this step will affect subsequent steps and could break the Power Query overall. So avoid deleting steps in the middle. Let's say if you know that your Power Query is working up to a specific step, but you need to remove all of the steps after it, you can use this delete till end. So for example, if I do it from here to delete till until end, it will remove change type and insert end of week, these two steps. Or say if I have a lot of steps here, it will remove all of those steps from here till the end of my Power Query. If you feel that you're using a particular transformation a lot more than others, you can add it in the quick access toolbar by right clicking it. So for example, let's say if I always want to check what the M code is writing and I want the advanced editor option to be added to quick access toolbar, I can right click on it and say add quick access toolbar. Now you can access them by pressing Alt button once and then selecting relevant key. So for example, I have pressed Alt once and now it shows two for the advanced editor option I added. You can also access other options using it. For example, on the home tab, I will press H and then you will access other options using the abbreviation that is appearing on the screen. So another important option that is on the home tab is data source settings. So for example, if you know that the location for your Excel file has changed and everything else in the file is the same, you can use this to change source and point this to the updated file location. So the last important option we have here is close and load. So you have two options here, that is close and load, and the other one is close and load too. So the close and load, as it says, if you hover over it, save your changes to query, close the query editor and load result to default destination. So what it's going to do is whatever query you have open and whatever edits you have made, it will load those queries as Excel tables. So for example, if I click on close and load right now, it will load these two Power Queries as Excel tables. So let's do that. And you can see it has created two Excel tables for those two Power Queries with the tab names as the Power Query names. So I really don't need these queries, so let me delete these. You can either right click here, or if this option is not showing, for example, it's not available here, you can go in data tab, you can click on queries and connections, and from here you can delete it. Keep in mind that once you delete the Power Query connection, it still keeps the table here, so you will have to remove these tables or delete these two tabs by yourself. You have seen that if you press close and load directly, it will just load all of the queries that are open in your Power Query editor to an Excel table. If you press close and load too, it will open up a new box and it says import data. Select how you want to view this data in your workbook. Right, so you can either create it in the form of a table, in a pivot table report as a chart, or only create connection. So keep in mind that if you are loading up few queries, so for example you are gathering data from 3 different files and then merging and appending them and creating it in a final product and then loading it in Excel file. So for those 3 queries you will use only create connection, so you only get the data in a Power Query editor. You do all of the edits on it, transformation, appending, merging, and then you select the final query and use table option to present it in a table format. For example, if you want to save it on an existing location, you can give it here. So for example, I want this to be added here. I can select this, and then there is another option here as well, add this data to the data model. So this is right now not being covered in this video, so it's connected with Power Pivot, which will be discussed in detail in another video series. So let me click on OK, and it will add the query here in cell B4. As you can see, it has created the query here. Right, so this wraps up this video. I hope you liked the video and learned something new, and I will see you next time. Stay tuned. Thank you.